What's up? What's going on? What's good, everybody? The Boston Source is here, and I'm glad to have on live with us a repeat guest, as there's a lot to catch up on from the past few weeks. He was in the corner there for Mario Barrios on July 19th, and we also saw him assist with Coach Ronnie Shields, who when David Morrell Jr. fought on July 12th in Queens, New York. Of course, it's Trainer of the Year, Coach Bob Santos. What's going on, Coach?
Everything's great. Great to be with you.
Yeah, great to be with you here. Of course, we have a lot to catch up on in reference to what happened over the past few weeks. First off, what went down at Las Vegas, Nevada there. Mario Barrios defending his WBC welterweight title there against Manny Pacquiao. 12 rounds, a very good fight, close fight. Ended up being a majority draw. One judge had it 7 rounds to 5 for Mario Barrios. But a lot of people kind of like seeing, the expressions that you had over the course of the fight, and you like pretty much wailing on them after like rounds 9 and 10. So go over those few rounds there, and then later on we'll go over the fight overall.
Sure. Obviously the first couple rounds in a fight, you want to feel somebody out. And, I was telling Barrios, imploring him with some of the things that Manny was, trying to ref the fight and fight the fight, as we've talked about in the past. I'm sure everybody heard the commentary, through what I was saying on the audio because I was mic'd up in the corner. But that being said, I knew you had to realize that Manny is the crowd favorite. He's the sentimental choice. You have to factor those types of things going into the fight. And going down the stretch, I knew that they were going to have it somewhat close at the point that we were at. So I implored him, hey, we got to get the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And I thought that was going to secure the victory for us. And, fortunately for us, the way the judges had it, we came out with a draw, because you just never know how things play out. Judges are human. They're subject to the fans and things of that nature and the hype of what's going on. And he throws one or two fights punches that don't land, and then oohs and ahs from the crowd. You throw one or two punches that lands, and you get nothing for it. But I mean, that is what it is. It's part of what the sport is. That's why they call it home field advantage. And these are the things that is part of the sport. So you got to know going in, you got to do a little bit more per se sometimes to get the win. And got to live in the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. And I know Mario could have did much more than that happened. Like I said, for whatever reason, there was a little disconnect from what I was imploring him to do and what was being done in the fight. So I don't know for what reasons those were, but it is what it is, and it's a draw now, and that's going to be in the history books, and you're going to have to move forward from there.
Yeah, I mean, you had the thing there where you talked about what was going on during the fight and what had to happen in those last few rounds, and if it wasn't for those last 3 rounds, we could have been in favor there of Manny Pacquiao, because they had a majority. Well, two of the judges, I would say, had it 6 rounds to 3 in favor of Manny Pacquiao. After 9 rounds, and it kind of goes to what you were saying about how the crowd could react, or how the judges could look at things the way that the flow of the fight could be. So if you look like you see more activity coming from Manny Pacquiao, then you might give favor to Manny Pacquiao for those rounds. But in my perspective, when I seen Mario Barrios, when he upped the offense and things like that, Manny Pacquiao really didn't have an answer for it. Especially in the 12th round, the beginning of the 12th round, I seen them throw like a series of 4 or 5 punches, and Manny Pacquiao really didn't have an answer for it. So I think that was more of what I would have expected from Mario Barrios to overwhelm Pacquiao there over the course of the fight.
Yeah, exactly. I was imploring him, from the third, fourth round, hey, we got to start getting a little bit nasty with him. We got to take this thing over and, not really respect him. Obviously, don't be reckless, but don't show too much respect. And, I think if he looks back on that and he looks at some of the things that were being assessed in the corner, I think it's something, like I said, if he looks back on it, I think he's going to know he could have did a little bit more, I think, and maybe even stop Pacquiao, not even had to go to the judge's decision. But it played out the way it did, and fortunately for us, like I said, I implored him those last couple rounds
Mm-hmm.
that we needed him. And and thank God he was able to retain his title, and he'll live to fight another day. But I definitely feel like we could have won that fight even by stoppage. But it played out the way it did, and sometimes you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, but shout out to my brother Joe here and there, Warwick Boxing there in the building. Says, hey, brother Bob, God bless you, my brother in Christ. There's brother Joseph here in there, and you also like asked, why did Team Pacquiao have a grievance against referee Thomas Taylor after the fight? If you knew anything about that.
I don't know why they would have a grievance against Thomas Taylor. The reality of it is, Manny Pacquiao was able to ref the fight and do what he wanted. If you heard the commentary and you heard the audio in the fight, I was imploring Barrios, stop allowing Pacquiao to fight the fight and ref the fight. He was able to do two jobs. He was virtually, in a sense, calling timeouts by saying things that were low blows, weren't low blows, dictating the pace of the fight, when and where he wanted to fight. That's why I kept imploring Barrios to stop respecting him and start getting busy, getting to work. Stop respecting him. Don't be reckless, but show him no kind of respect. And I don't know why they would have did anything with Thomas Taylor. He allowed him to do a lot of things in there, like I said, to be dictating what was a low blow, what the pace of the fight is, when they were breaking. So if anything, he should be very thankful for the way that he was allowed to have ref the fight and the way the fight was able to play out.
Yeah, and there was one moment that you had there with Mario Barrios, in the corner. I think it was before the 10th round. And you said, the thing about not showing them respect and not giving them much time to breathe and things like that, and don't do this as far as like giving them credence and everything like that. And I'm watching live, and then he gets ready for like the 10th round. And then the first thing Barrios did was pretty much like, tap the glove with Manny Pacquiao. And I'm like, no, you're not supposed to do that. Like, necessarily give him respect. Why are you doing that? So it's like, I was like, oh man, I kind of like felt your frustration there, watching that happen live, because it was like something where, like, as you said, I mean, given, the accolades that Manny Pacquiao had, of course, a recent International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, you still have to show that you're levels above this guy in the ring and show why you are the WBC welterweight champion. You can't necessarily give him respect like that.
Yeah, I've said, and a lot of people have brought up to me, whether it was Joe Goosen, Abner Mars, they're just like, obviously there's a disconnect because you're given your best advice of what's going on in the corner, what you're seeing in real time, and you hope that your guy is going to react to it and listen to what you're saying and take it to heart, and then go act on what you need to be done. But for whatever reason, I don't know what the disconnect was, because I really feel like had he listened to me a little bit more, there's no doubt about it that we could have stopped Manny Pacquiao. But again, there's a disconnect, and why some of the things weren't being followed the way I would have liked. I don't know. I don't know if it was a case of, hey, I'm fighting this Hall of Famer. I don't know if it's a case of why the disconnect was. I thought I was giving pretty damn good, savvy advice on what needed to be done to win the fight. I feel like we did a good job to put him in position, and thank God saved the fight with a draw. But like I said, Abner Marr, Joe Goosen, Jim Gray, virtually everybody that watched the fight, listened to the commentary, said, the advice you were giving in the corner was spot on. But again, I'm not in the ring. I don't know. Does he have a hurt shoulder? Does he have a hurt hand? I don't know. I don't know what's going on in his body, through his body, or why the reasoning was for the disconnect. And But it is what it is. It played out. It's a draw. We're all going to have to live with that moving forward in the history books. But I really believe there's no doubt in my mind that Mario Barrios could have stopped and could have showed more. And I just don't know why it played out the way it did.
Yeah, that's something there that, as you said, we're gonna have to think about here for the rest of the year, and if there's like any possibility of a rematch, and maybe Mario Barros will be able to kind of like redeem himself on that front. But here, like I said, he's still the WBC welterweight champion, and so we got to
That's
see
right.
what.
He retained the title no matter what by any means necessary. He's still the champ, and he gets to move forward, and he's still in a pretty good position moving forward. But like I said, I don't know. Like I said, that there was some kind of disconnect there. I just I just don't know. But thank God he followed instructions for sure. And what I was saying in that 10th, 11th, and 12th, and that ensured us to at least get the draw and retain the title.
Word, no doubt, no doubt. Our brother Joseph here has a question also here. He asked in reference to Ryan Garcia. If you were mentoring Ryan Garcia, what would be your advice for him at this time of his life?
Well, what I really believe wholeheartedly with Ryan Garcia is that you got to live in the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. And sometimes you got to work within the structures and the powers that be, whatever the case is. With sometimes, obviously there's a disconnect with him and his promoter, and the things that sometimes go, behind the scenes. Like, you're saying, well, you get the guys giving the good advice. This is happening. Why is this happening? There's a disconnect. I think with him, he really needs to have people that are going to have his back, and sometimes, just flat out be honest with him. And sometimes you got to be like medicine. You don't want to take it, but it's good for you. And that was my nickname as a kid growing up with my brothers, and everybody said, man, you're like medicine, man. You give advice, people don't want, they don't want to take it, but it's good for you. And I think what he needs is people that are not going to be yes men. People that are going to say, hey, this is what needs to be done. This is where you can become great. And this is how it has to be. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. It's already there for you. A couple of little tweaks here and there, and you need people that are just going to be disciplined around him. And I think if he does that and he gets back to that, gets to a team that says, hey, look, this is what needs to be done. I've been there. I've done it. I have the blueprint. Just follow the lead of what's going on. And if he does that, I think he can become a world champion, and he can be successful. But if he continues to have people around him, from what I'm seeing, that are just allowing him to dictate when he wants to do it, how he wants to do it, in pretty much every situation, it's going to be very tough to get to the top. Can you do it? Can you get to the top still like that? Sure. Will you stay at the top? I don't think so.
Yeah, the thing about it is, with the popularity level of Ryan Garcia and the attention that he gets, you do like have a lot of those people that, as you said, maybe yes men, and kind of like would cater to your every request that you may have, and not like show any type of resistance to something that may end up being negative for you in the long term. So for the time being, Ryan could have that instance where he might be making decisions that may not be good for him in the long term. And there's no one that's out there that might say, hey, this ain't really the route for you. You have to take a different path in order for you to, be better off. So we have to, see how he's able to navigate from this point of his career going forward, especially coming off of his recent loss there to Rolando Rolly Romero there in May. So I mean that's a good piece of advice there in reference to that front. I mean, now I wanted to move forward because you also were part of a corner there for David Morrell Jr. As he was out there in Queens, New York for Ring 3. And he had that bout where he ended up winning by decision. A lot of people felt like it was a close fight. He did, kind of slip up there, was in the 5th round and got knocked down in that particular bout. So kind of like go over or grade this performance there, because after the knockdown, I felt like as long as Morrell stuck with the jab and kind of like used his distance, which I thought he should have did from the beginning, it would have been like an easy fight. But I guess he wanted to make it more of a action packed fight.
Well, first off, thinking, is the fight even going to go through because of the positive test and what was going to
Mhm.
happen with the ban with the guy? But to David's credit, he still went through with the fight with that guy. The guy's already a big time puncher, good fighter, big time puncher. There's obviously a cloud over what's going on with the guy, with the suspension and so forth.
Mhm.
But I thought Morrell did what he had to do. He got up after the knockdown. He closed the show in the 10th round. So what do you like versus what do you like more stylistically? But kudos to David Morrell, because a lot of guys wouldn't even have went through with the fight once they knew what was happening with him in terms of the drug testing and so forth. So from that perspective, you got to take your hat off to David Morrell to even go through with the fight. I think people got to take that into consideration. Obviously they don't. But guess what? David Morrell was tested clean. He never tested positive. He went through the fight with a guy that has obviously a cloud of suspicion over what's going on there. And I still think he edged out the fight, won the fight. And you think about David Morrell's last three fights at 175. You got Hot Rod, then you have Benavidez, and then he goes into this guy, like I said, with the cloud of suspicion going on. The guy's, a tremendous puncher, a big-time fighter, an Olympian, strong, heavy-handed guy. And I think
Mhm.
people got to give David Morrell his respect. And obviously, again, he only had 11, 12 fights. So every fight to get another 10 rounds like that, he's just going to get better and better and get more and more experience.
Yeah, that's the thing there. He was getting the experience with that particular fight, and now they have him. It looks like they have him lined up against Callum Smith for that interim
Yeah.
WBO title there at 175 pounds. So he's like taking challenge after challenge after challenge here, and if
And
he ends up like
you
having
got
it
to
this
respect.
year, yeah, if he
Yeah,
ends
you
up
got
having
to
it this
respect.
year, that's like three fights this year against Benavidez, and then you had this fight here, and then now Callum Smith. I mean, that's crazy. You rarely see that in today's age of fighters.
What's interesting, going into the fight, with the Russian, I says, in a lot of ways, Benavidez is a better boxer. Obviously, he beat Morrell in that fight. But I go, in a lot of ways, I think we're going to win the fight for sure. But in a lot of ways, this guy is a much more dangerous fight in terms of, even if you were to knock him out, say 6, 7, or 8 rounds, he's such a heavy-handed guy. I knew he was a much bigger puncher than Benavidez. So until you get him out of there or until the final bell rings, you're going to take a lot more damage from a guy like that than, say, Benavidez. Even if you could say, well, Benavidez clearly beat him, and this fight could go either way. But the reality of it is, it's a much more dangerous fight in terms of the damage that you're going to take from a guy like that because of his punching power.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of seen that there with even with the knockdown that happened there with the Imam Katayev. Like that was the right hand, but it didn't necessarily like fully land flush. It was just mostly with
Oh,
um,
yeah, he's
back
a big time puncher for sure. He's a big time puncher for sure. Could do a lot of damage to you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So definitely going to look forward to seeing what's going to be next here for David Morrell Jr. Later on down the line. He's looking like he's going to get in a gear to get prepared for camp for that next fight when they do schedule his bout against Callum Smith there for that interim WBO title there, 175 pounds. Now I know that also have a number of fighters there under your stable. They got like Isaac Lucero, I think like had his fight in May, where he defeated another, undefeated fighter. That was like it was almost like easy work, man. It was easy work, around second round stoppage and that type of thing. So that was a great performance. I think that was probably one of the performances of the night for that fight card, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure, yeah, we call him Puro Mexico, so he should be back in the ring sooner rather than later, and we're very excited about him. He's all action. He's like an all action hero. He's downhill all the way, and he loves to fight. There's no challenge he hasn't turned down, whether it's been in a sparring session or any opportunity that, say, Louis DeCubas Jr. or Al Heyman or Sampson have given him. So we know he just loves to fight. He's about fighting. He's a true dog, a true throwback. So I think he's going to be great and exciting for the sport and for the fans moving forward. And I got Luis Nunez. Hopefully somebody's going to take the challenge with him. I think he's one of the best 126 pounders in the sport. Unfortunately, he hasn't had an opportunity to prove it, but every time he's had a chance to step up, without the big name guys in eliminators. I think he's won 3 or 4 eliminators for world titles and has still never got the world title shot. I don't know how that works, but unfortunately, he's been on the short end of the stick. And like I always say, you got to live in the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. But I think he's going to be a world champion not so far in the distant future. And then I got, Lanier Perot, the number 4 heavyweight in the world. He should be coming back with Eddie Hearn and Amari Pedra in, I think, November 1st. And then hopefully his brother, we're just waiting on a date from Turkey and those guys. So we should get the 2 heavyweights back in the ring sooner rather than later. And then I got the Juarez brothers. I got Sebastian Juarez going to fight on the 23rd on the zone. So everybody be looking out for him, a great young prospect. And his brother Omar Juarez will be fighting August 16th. And so hopefully we can get him back going. He's the one that fought Rancis Bartholomew, came up a little bit on the short end of the stick, but he was 22 at the time. So hopefully we can get him going in the right direction. And Elijah Garcia, hopefully, too. He should be getting ready to go here, hopefully by October.
Oh, man. So you got a very busy schedule there coming up. You said the thing for September, well, I think August 23rd. I think that's the MVP card. I think that would be in Orlando, Florida.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so you definitely have that because I know they got like 2 days of events there in Orlando, Florida. But that Saturday should be a big event, or like I know about a good number of notable fights there for August 23rd. But like you said, there's a stacked schedule there for you coming up down the line up there, and we can either get more from like you said, the Perro brothers, Elijah Garcia there, Luis Nunez. So a lot of guys that you have there in action in key fights, and of course about the Candyman John Easter as well.
And I'd be remiss too if I don't mention Luis Coriano Torres, the one that dispatched of Nicholas Walters on Pro Box. He'll be fighting again September 5th on Pro Box out there in Washington, D.C. So we hope he'll have another great performance and put himself in title contention.
Yeah, so I gotta be able to get the full card there for September 5th because that's a No Excuse Promotions card. We got Jordan White that's and the headliner for that. So I'm gonna be there, of course, since it's based in my area. So I'm gonna be there for that whole fight.
Let's go.
Definitely got a number of fights to catch up on there. I guess you got Sano Babanto says, well, someone checking in from the Philippines here live too, with of course Coach Bob Santos. Now, one other thing that you chimed in on was I think it was a couple of mentions of what it was for SNAC and I think Victor Conti or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's been like a number of things going on back and forth in reference to, at least for the topic at hand right now, when it comes to like I would say, for example, Terrence Crawford. He has this big fight coming up September 13th against Canelo Alvarez, and now some people are bringing up, oh gosh, I mean he's there, he's a SNAC fighter, he's there like 185 pounds and all this type of stuff. I'm like, come on, man.
Well, when people talk like that, facts are stubborn things, right? So I get it with Victor Conte, what the past was and so forth. I'm a big believer, in Christ. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So I've known Victor with Nonito Donaire. I know Nonito Donaire since he was a kid. He's the first fighter that started working with Victor Conte. And he's the one that really brought him to my attention about what he was doing and how he was trying to do things. And of course, at first you're going to be very leery because you don't want to be associated with anything that's going to be negative to the sport you love or so forth. And little by little, he was talking to me about different supplements and things of that nature and what he had and some of the tests. And then, you put everything, you declare what he's giving you on the test. You declare that, you give that to them. They look at everything in transparency. As far as Terrence Crawford goes, oh man, he's a lot bigger now. Well, look, regardless of what weight, let's say a guy, for instance, the Robert Guerrero, he's fighting at 126, but he's probably walking around normally at probably 155 pounds, right? 150 pounds. Some of these guys are big guys. And obviously, as you get older and time goes on, your body's going to fill out even more. Now, can you carry that weight and perform in the ring? That's something completely different because your bone structure and so forth, things of that nature. So a lot of these guys are much bigger than what they are when they're walking around. So when you see, oh man, he's got this much weight on him, yeah, that's fantastic, but can you produce with that in the ring? So that in itself, I think, is kind of a misnomer. Don't put too much into that basket. And at the end of the day, you got the best testing system there is in the world with VADA. That's what we have is the best right now. And if you're using that and everybody's doing that to the best of their ability, it's going to be what it's going to be. Are some people going to be able to circumvent the test? I guess, am I trying to do that? Of course not. Do I want any of my fighters to do that? Of course not. Because, for me, when somebody steps in the ring, they're putting their life on the line. And when people are doing things out of the ordinary and they have been proven to knowingly and willingly do something like that, I think it should be a lifetime ban. So if somebody says they were taking something, they had no knowledge of it, okay, you're still responsible for what you're taking. It should be a 2-year ban minimum. And if you do it again, it should be a lifetime ban. If somebody is knowingly, willingly, and they got proof of, say, track record of wire transcripts with or transactions with the money, doing those things, I think automatically it should be a lifetime ban. I'm a no nonsense in that. And so from that perspective, where I relied on SNAC and guys like Victor Conte, not just for the supplemental things, but you can't buy experience, right? But you can hire with people that do have experience. So one aspect that he has, because of the SNAC thing, they have a track record of a lot of guys, how they performed in certain fights to a scientific thing. How were they being run? How were they doing? How many rounds of sparring? And you can look at that from a database. So you have a chance to work with somebody like that. I think that gives you a leg up on some of your competition. And I think a lot of people just discredit that and automatically it's steroids, it's human growth, whatever the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case at all. If I thought that in any aspect or any way, shape, or form, I'd never want to work with anybody like that. I don't think that's the case. I think mainly what it is getting a guy like Coach Remy, who's one of the greatest Olympic coaches there was, and knowing how to run and how to push a guy for optimum performance. I think you have a big advantage because guys like Robert Garcia used to do camps out there in the Bay Area with a lot of their guys, and then they got a lot of the data. How were they doing sparring? The data from guys like you said, Andre Berto and all these different guys, and so you get a wealth of information, and when the more information you got, the better I think you can use to have your guys perform at a high level.
Yeah, and you talk about a couple of the examples of fighters that have been there with the program. You talk about Andre Berto or like a Demetrius Andrade.
Nonito Donaire, the list goes on and on and on with a lot of guys that he's worked with, and he has a lot of data that's going to be more so than most average coaches.
Mm-hmm. And so with that being said, like it kind of like tells you, as you were mentioning there, these guys have been in these programs that kind of like assist them while they prepare for fights, or as you said, like for an example. Guys could be like at 175 trying to, make fights at 154 or 147. You know what I mean? So I would think
that's commonplace in the sport. That's commonplace in the sport. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. So it's like the more experience you have or the more years you have, it will take, a longer time to try to get down to that weight that you're pretty much fighting at. So, you have different methods that you're, able to do things and perform at an optimal level. And but someone like Conte, I guess, he has been able to study that particular method for, I would say, decades. You know what I mean? So,
well, he's got a wealth of data because of all the guys that he's worked with, right? Mm-hmm. And then you got a wealth of data and just information that he has. Even back in the day when he was working with the Olympic athletes, and whatever they were doing with the drugs and so forth, or whatever the case was. But still, you're getting data on a bunch of different guys. Now, obviously, you can't be using enhancements and things of that nature, but you still have the knowledge of what was being done, how they were being done, how they were being pushed. Now you have the knowledge of the guys that are not on anything. How did you push compared to this? What was the performance from here to here? And that's invaluable knowledge. And then he's got a guy like Remy Cormini, that was the Russian coach. You got a lot of experience in how to run guys, how to push guys, what's optimum for them. And, you can't just discredit that or discount that. And obviously, then the first thing that you do with him or any of these other guys, they want you to be in drug testing, especially him. I can tell you this, with me, some of these guys with the promoters, and sometimes they don't do testing because the testing could be too expensive for lower level fighters. And I can tell you this through his words to me is like, hey, Bob, I want every single fighter, if we're going to work with them, to be drug tested to the optimum, to from the blood to the optimum, this and that. Of course, he wants to make sure that moving forward, that he has a clear conscience, that he's doing the right things and he's in the right. And then the other thing is he knows these guys are putting their lives on the line. And so through his discretion, more so, maybe more than anybody in the sport, he's pushing for drug testing more than anybody.
Yeah. And, you talked about the part with the testing. Like a number of fans don't realize that with the, like you say, the VADA program or whatever it is, or voluntary anti-doping thing with their test. One is as it says, voluntary, and two, the fighters themselves have to be able to pay for those tests. They're the ones that have to make the payments for those tests to be conducted in a lot of those occasions. And as you mentioned there, those that are like in the lower levels, they wouldn't necessarily have the funds in order for those tests to take place. So it kind of like makes for a really interesting situation on those fronts. But once you get to the higher levels, then you see more of those fighters that have been top contenders or world champions that are able to properly have these tests and conduct them in a almost like a routine basis. Or as you mentioned, there with like Nonito Donaire, who was like one of the first to do 24/7, 365 method of testing there for VADA on that front. So that's the thing.
And a lot of people don't realize, I hate to cut in here, but a lot of people don't realize too, like with the VADA testing, you got to tell them where you're going to be at all times. And if you're not there, first time's a warning, second time's a positive test, whether you test it or not. So you got to be super held accountable, and nobody's pushing harder for that than Victor Conte.
Yeah, that I didn't know. I didn't know that.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So a lot of people don't realize this. You're going to really be held accountable. And like I said, then all of a sudden, hey, well, then you weren't where you were supposed to be. Okay, you got your first warning. Next days they show up, you weren't where you're supposed to be, or they have the ability to test you then and there when they need to test you, whether it's at your house, whether it's at the gym, whether they're meeting you at the mountain for the run. Then you got a positive test. So you got to really be held accountable. So I get where people are coming from for what has happened with him in the past, but nobody's pushing harder right now than him to get it out there about drug testing, to get it out there to clean up the sport. Give me the guy who's doing more than he is to clean up the sport.
Yeah. So it's it's the ongoing process in order to properly clean up the sport when it comes to the supplements or what is being taken by the fighters there to make sure that everyone is safe that's stepping in the ring there. So that's something that
and then like with Conte and with Conte with SNAC, all the supplements he gives the fighters are on his website. You could buy them, you could take them to any pharmacist you want, and you can see what it is. That's what we use for the fighters: basic protein, basic vitamins. But where I think we get a leg up, Robert Garcia, myself, Stephen Breadman Edwards, is that we get to look at the data. How should we be pushing this guy? Are we going a little too much? Should we pull back on this a little bit? And I think that's a big advantage, and I think that's where Conte and Remy come in and can really make a difference difference in a camp, and a lot of guys don't understand that. So it's a great help for sure. And again, if I thought in any way, shape, or form he wasn't doing things on the up and up, I'd be the first guy not to work with him. I think I've been in this sport for 30 something years. I think I've had a pretty damn good reputation. I've been straightforward with everybody. I've been accountable in losses where my guys have lost, where I've taken the sacrifice and the blame. So I think I'm as straight up as anybody comes in the sport. And I think he's doing more to help clean up the sport than virtually anybody is at this time.
Gotcha. So, that's one thing that people will be definitely looking out for there, as far as like the ongoing process with Snack and how he's able to properly see what's going on as far as like the supplements and all the ingredients that would be there in the supplements. So if there's like anything that could be like not cool as far as like Bravado or any other tested agency, he will be able to catch it.
Well, not only that, people got to realize though too, you're not just doing the VADA test when you get in the championship test. You still got to do the Nevada State Athletic Commission test too, and that's completely something that's separate. So you're getting tested on multiple fronts.
Yeah, that's definitely something there.
So
That's a whole lot.
that's the unfortunate thing about life. Some people hear things they don't know, and it's easy to start a rumor, and you get a little bit of truth, and you're like, wow. And then the conspiracy theories start wailing out there. Now, I'm not going to say that there hasn't been people that are using or doing things. Sometimes I'm in these fights, and I'm like, man, that just doesn't look like a natural performance to me. I think we all have an understanding of what a natural performance is. If you look at, for the most part, any of the guys in and around that have been tested with that, you've not seen them guys go out there and do like 8, 9 knockouts in a row and all of a sudden setting the all-time punch record. They're pretty competitive fights, and the best guy's going to win, and you're going to edge out to some degree or the other. When you see guys just getting put out, laid out on their back, the guy just threw.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, are you able to see? Hold on a second. See if I'm able to hear you. Hold on. Not able to get you on. Hold on just a second. Think you might be paused there for a minute. Hold on. I don't know if y'all are live, if y'all are able to hear him, because I'm not able to hear him on my end. I had to check something real fast. Because yeah, he was really going into detail on that stuff as far as like how fighters kind of like look there on that front. So I'm gonna see here if I get him back on. Yeah, I'll see. Yeah, he kind of like went off there. Hopefully he could get back on here to kind of like close this point. I'm gonna see if he could reconnect on that front. On that instance, I'm gonna try to see if I could do something else here on my end. So hold on just a moment. Hopefully he's able to reconnect. But also I'm gonna see here if I could do my thing here on this front. Hopefully you're able to see me on this. I have to, switch a few things up here in a little bit, but hopefully I could get him back on here on this instance because he really was kind of like breaking down what goes on with the programs as far as like the nutrition programs, being able to cut down as far as like the weight is concerned and what has to be done in order to check out the performance levels of these fighters. So hopefully he'll be able to kind of like properly break that down here a little bit more. But he has the link. See if he'll be able to reconnect on here in a little bit. Not then we'll see if we could reconvene here to kind of like talk about that a little bit more. But on that front, hopefully you were able to enjoy what was said there from Coach Bob Santos over the past like 30 or 40 minutes or so there. So I'm going to see if we could, have him reconnect or something like that, or I don't know, maybe his it might have been a thing there with his phone. I mean, hopefully, was his phone or something like that, because had like a couple of things that I wanted to talk about left with that. Like he was on here for a little bit and then it just got abruptly cut. So I'm gonna see here if he's able to reconnect But let's see here. But yeah, that was good conversation there, for the first 30 minutes or so with Bob Santos. And I wanted to see if I could get more from him here on this front. So let me see here. I just sent a text out for him to see if he's able to get back on. But if not, then we might see if we can reconvene here at a later date or something like that. So it might have been something there with his phone or something. Because yeah, at this point I'm not able to get a quick response from him. So that was the thing there. But yeah, he was able to talk about what happened there with the performance of Mario Barrios, and also kind of like touched on what happened with David Morrell Jr. and Isaac Lucero, who had his good performance there, second round stoppage over Omar Valenzuela. And he has a very busy schedule coming up as well. So we got something here for these next couple of weeks. He got something on slate for August 23rd. He should be here with the fighter on September 5th on the Pro Box card as well. So, and then we're going to see if we get more about the Perro brothers and also Elijah Garcia as well. So, definitely a busy schedule there for Bob Santos. As far as I'm seeing here, I don't think he's able to, get back on here. It looks like he's, been he kind of like the phone ran out there. So, what I'll have to do is I'll see if we can reconnect here at a later date. And, once we do that, then we'll be able to continue the conversation here with Coach Bob Santos. But, big thanks for him for joining in here live. And then we'll see what we can get in. I don't know if it'll be later this week or probably sometime next week to catch up on the conversation there. But big thanks for everyone that's been able to listen live. Hopefully you enjoy the content. For those that joined in late, you can hit the rewind button to see what we were talking about. Hit the like button if you enjoy the content. And what we'll be able to do is we got, of course, scheduled for Tuesday, Real Boxing with Coach Ronnie Shields, and then we also have the midweek report scheduled for Wednesday evening. So we've got a lot here on the Boxing Source YouTube channel. Hopefully you'll be able to catch us here for those particular live shows here on the channel. Until then, I'll catch y'all later. All right. Peace out.